Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here for the 30th anniversary of this extraordinarily valuable foundation. It's the only one of its kind in the world. There's been a great deal of interest in palliative care in the United States, but we don't have a comparable organization, nor do I know of one anywhere else. 30 years is a long time to sustain a program, but in the case of palliative care, the interest has grown continually over the years, and it's a pleasure to see that not only has this foundation come through to 30 years, but it has many years ahead of it, and I will try to argue why. I was amused to have a book I wrote on military ethics cited here, but I might say my organization, the Hastings Center in New York, which is devoted to ethical problems of medicine and biology, is right across the river from our United States Military Academy. And over the years, every year for 25 years now, we have had an annual meeting with the ethics faculty of the Military Academy. And I have become very interested in the relationship between military ethics and medical ethiks. I won't go into that now, but it's been fascinating, and there really are some very interesting connections. I'm going to talk instead today about give you my views about palliative care and its future. I want in this lecture to make what I believe is a serious, even if extravagant, claim for the importance of the palliative care movement. For years, much of my work has centered on finding a better balance between the cure of patients and the care of patients. It has been an uphill struggle most of the way, but the time now seems increasingly ripe for a tipping of that balance toward caring for patients and not just aiming to cure them. There are two reasons for saying that. The first reason is the emergence of chronic illness as the dominant form of illness, and with it, a slow rather than a fast trajectory to death. We cannot cure any of the main chronic diseases. Cancer and heart disease are high on that list, but the lives of those with them can now be extended, the diseases ameliorated. Longer lives in bad health are now possible, and the problem is how to make bad health tolerable. We are not only now beginning to take the full measure of chronic illness, and palliative care should have a leading role in mastering its demands. The second reason is the widening scope of palliative care, its growing ambitions. While I can claim no expertise in the history of palliative care, I first noticed its emergence during the early 1970s, when efforts were underway in the United States and elsewhere to improve the care of the dying. Survey after survey during the 1960s and 1970s showed a shockingly inadequate knowledge of and efforts toward the relief of pain among physicians. There were at that time few specialists on pain relief, but they gradually began to appear. Among them, my friend, pushed in great part by my friend Kathleen Foley at Memorial Sloan Kettering, who is one of your speakers later today. As time went on, the specialty of palliative care was gradually being shaped, and with it, side by side, was the hospice movement. With that effort came a widening of its agenda, the movement beyond end-of-life care to the care of all patients, and from a narrow focus on pain to a broader one encompassing as well the psychological and spiritual forms of suffering that are part of illness. My surmise is that chronic illness poses the greatest challenge and opportunities for palliative care. That of managing the pain and suffering of patients over many months and often years, not simply the kind brought on by short-term acute care crises and episodes, or at the end of life. Let me review all too briefly my understanding of the rise of modern cure-oriented medicine. Ancient medicine, and medicine through at least the first half of the 19th century, focused on the care and comfort of patients. Cure was rarely possible. From the middle of the 19th century through World War II, however, care was gradually being displaced as a priority, replaced by the steadily expanding possibilities of cure, and particularly of infectious diseases. After that war, when it soon came to seem that those diseases had been vanquished by scientific medical research, cure became the dominant aim of research and the primary goal of clinical medicine. It was a time of great progress and unbounded hope. And if the infectious diseases could be cured, then surely the chronic diseases of aging and the lifestyles of affluent societies could be dispatched as well. It has not turned out that way. Chronic diseases have increased along with increased longevity, and as age and rising hospital infection rates have shown, infectious disease is still with us. The part of that story which long ago caught my attention was that, as cure became the dominant aim of medicine, care declined in importance. Care became in medicine a second-class citizen. Doctors were increasingly less trained to provide it. Hospitals had little interest in it. Excuse me. My pages don't want to come apart here. And the caretakers of the chronically ill were increasingly drawn from the less educated and poorer sectors of society. Modern medicine has single-mindedly pursued cure as the ideal outcome of illness. It also aims, at its highest levels, to help us as individuals to transcend the need for caring, to minimize our biological vulnerability, and to allow us to use medical skills to pursue our own values and ways of life. The modal creature of contemporary life, celebrated in our media and advertising, is the fit young adult, footloose and fancy-free, or the well-preserved, vital senior citizen, each shaping a fast-paced life of unlimited horizons and unimpeded self-direction. Medicine is supposed to give us the body to do that, and the market and good government to provide the sustaining economic and social environment. Under such a popular scenario, caring as a value can be downgraded, delisted, maybe someday eliminated in that best of all possible worlds. Who will need it? Not the young, who with adequate parental care will survive infancy and who will see genetic disease and childhood cancers vanquished, or the old, who will have longer lives and, through the magic of technology, healthier lives, lives of travel and fresh self-discovery on the golf course or in the mastery of the internet. To my mind, the greatest problem with serious illness and deadly diseases is what they do to our sense of selfhood. They first attack our bodies and then, with that work done, rob us of our sense of security in the world. Everything comes crashing down, and we are doomed to seeing at least the world of our body and our health fall apart. One of the first tasks of caring is to help a person deal with the perception that bodily integrity has been lost, and perhaps in its wake, the integrity of the self as well. Selves and bodies, however, cannot be wholly distinguished. A reintegration is often possible, for a good deal of caring is to provide support, sympathy, and understanding as the patient works through to a new self. The self, at first threatened in what seemed a hopeless way, can learn to cope with a different kind of body, one less friendly and familiar than earlier, but a body with which a wary truce can be worked at, one sufficient to allow life to go on. A fundamental contribution of caring is to help patients through that seemingly hopeless phase, giving them initially, in a vicarious way, sufficient props and reassurance that they can begin moving on their own into the new world that they must now inhabit. In the case of acute illness, it may be a temporary world. In the case of chronic illness, it may be the world they will have to live with for the rest of their life. Good caring can help people to make that transition. The kind of caring that understands it is not just pain or disability at stake, but a change in self-understanding and one's place in the physical and social world. Let me say something about different levels of caring. Caring must be understood at the level of the general and the particular. By speaking about the general, I mean those cross-cutting forms of caring that are almost always needed by patients, whatever their conditions and whatever the situation of the caregiver. By the particular, I refer to that critical mode of caring that works to understand this patient at this time, in this circumstance, seeking to find what is unique about the patient and his or her needs. Let me specify what I think are some general levels of caring. I believe it is appropriate to distinguish at least 4 levels of general care, which I contend are necessary for all patients, even if there is no expressed desire for the care or even any apparent reason for it at first blush. There is the cognitive level, where the need of a person